Going live on live. And I'm live. Hey, pussies. Oop, I didn't have my microphone. Here we go. That's what happens sometimes. Okay, now. Hey, pussies. Welcome to the 18th video with me. I am Positive Pussy. Oh, I really am just fucked up the computer real bad just now. And that's okay because, everything works out sometimes. Okay. All right. Welcome to the 18th video with me. I am Positive Pussy. I hope everyone is having a wonderful summer. I know that I am. It has been a very sexy week, and I am so glad about that. And tonight, we will be talking about sex and culture. But before all that, I have to say, as always, subscribe to my YouTube, follow me on Twitter at PositivePuss, and check out positivepussy.live for all the resources from my past videos. And don't forget, you can email me. It's at positivepusslive@gmail.com if you have any sex questions that you want answered by me, or you can comment on a video. I actually got a comment from somebody on my sex question videos. Go figure. And so I wanted to answer the question here because it actually segued really well into sex and culture and just the way that we think about things. I forgot to turn my sound off. See, I'm a mess. It has been a crazy day. So the question is being interested in tentacle porn weird? I feel ashamed, but decided to ask anyways. And my answer to this question is, oh my God, no, that is absolutely not weird. It's very normal. And if one could possibly imagine maybe like a tentacle sucking on your clit, probably feels a lot better than a mouth. And so I can definitely see the appeal of it. And if it was weird, there wouldn't be so many awesome tentacle dildos out there or so much tentacle porn. And it wouldn't be a part of art from Japan in the 1800s. While it's not a common fetish, that's just something about you that's cool and unique, and it gives you ways to experience pleasure that others don't have. And I would say it might be unhygienic and a little inhumane to have sexual relations with any animal since they can't consent and all that. But you can still indulge in this sexual desire if you get yourself one of those really cool tentacle dildos I was talking about. They have really amazing ones on Etsy and other sites. And like I said, they have tentacle porn out there. And if you want to incorporate the fantasy into your real sex life, get one of those dildos and maybe some other cool props and do some role play with a trusted partner. I promise that someone out there probably has the same kink as you or a kink that complements yours so that you guys have roles in the role play. So if you like the tentacles on you and maybe someone likes putting tentacles on other people, suction cups are a thing. So I definitely think that that's something that is possible for you. And if your partner thinks it's weird, they obviously don't respect differences in preference, because I promise that it's absolutely normal. And I definitely see the appeal. So don't worry and enjoy yourself. And don't be ashamed. Shame is the feeling that you are bad for something, and I swear that like you're not bad for having this sexual desire. If you were to go out and start harming animals because of this desire, then that's a whole different talk. But having the desire, consuming tentacle porn, having a tentacle dildo, or engaging in tentacle fantasy or role play is normal, and it doesn't make you a bad person. And if it's consensual and then it's good, keep it up. And if you don't want to, you never have to tell anyone that you don't trust with that information. But I suggest releasing yourself from the shame, but just realize like not everyone deserves to know everything about you. So yeah, and if someone does try to shame you, if you do tell someone, then they probably have some shit that they feel shame about that they need to realize and get over. Because as you know, misery loves company, and that goes for shame too. And as soon as you see someone letting go of their shame and feeling confident in themselves, you start to feel more like you need to shame them and be like, no, 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 you need to think more like me, and hold on to your shame too, because then we can be shameful together. But you're not weird. You're actually pretty cool. So go ahead and enjoy that tentacle fetish. Don't even worry about it. And yeah, that question actually is a good segue into sex and culture, because it talks about being weird. And like things that are weird are definitely defined by the culture that is using the term. So it's defined by the person, the group, or the society, even the time period that's using it. So what's weird to me may not be weird to you. What's weird to people who live in California may not be weird to people in Texas, or Europe. And what was weird 100 years ago could be super normal now, and what was normal then is probably really weird now. And to Westerners like myself, tentacle porn is less common, but it is more common in Japan, and it is often featured in hentai, which is, I hope I said that right. I tried really hard. Which to us is just a broad term for Japanese porn, but in Japanese, the word means more unconventional sexual act, and in Japan, apparently, the more conventional, unconventional sexual act happens to include some tentacles. But however, the culture in Japan has made for a very different sexual atmosphere than here in, at least where I am in the Western world. I read a really interesting article from a writer in Japan, who talked about ways in which Japanese sexual culture is different. And I'll definitely post a link to it because it was super interesting. And I was reading some of his other articles too. It doesn't just talk about sex. And I'm not just interested in sex, but the law around prostitution in Japan is strange because it makes only vaginal intercourse illegal. So oral, anal, hand jobs, blow jobs, that's oral. All of that other stuff, everything except penis and vagina sex is legal to sell. So that makes for a lot of, underground prostitution, because obviously that's not easy to regulate. You can't like watch every single person and see if they're paying for PIV sex. And also, a lot of times people will just sell their time, and like if sex happens, then that's a personal arrangement, and not technically they were paying for the time, they weren't paying for the actual sex. So there's ways around it. And people in Japan work a lot more, and there's time for actual relationships. So there's a huge market for all of these sex workers. And despite the tentacle porn and the used panty vending machines and the sex robots, which was a lot of what popped up when I was looking up Japan, which I guess I just kind of went down a little rabbit hole trying to like figure out some stuff about their culture. But it's known to be a more sexually repressed as a society. And they are the least sexually satisfied country based on the pleasure report that Tanga did in this year. And I also quoted that survey for one of my masturbation videos in May. So I'll post a link to it again, but it's very interesting. And that also highlights a lot of differences in just sexual attitudes and behaviors. And like, if you know some of the sexual attitudes, and then you could look at the behaviors, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. So that's just me. I like statistics, even though I'm not very good at them. But yeah, I say like sex robots and used panty machines like they're abnormal, because they are to me, and probably not to the people who were born and raised within a culture that has that. And the way different parts of the world developed and their histories, everything goes into shaping modern society and modern culture. And it's very complicated to go into why all these cultures have different sexual norms. There's so many factors. And like I said, all of history, the religion in the area, the politics in the area, literally everything. Culture builds on itself and is always changing. The point is, all of these different cultural attitudes exist. For example, homosexuality. Homosexuality is found in every culture and even across species, but the treatment of homosexual individuals differs across cultures and even across time. So in older times, before like monotheistic religions like Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, those kinds of works, there's evidence that these older societies were tolerant of homosexuality. I mean, I read a lot of Plato, and I'm not trying to brag, but he was a really good, fun philosopher to read about. But in ancient Greece, there was a lot of homosexuality, and it was not only accepted, but it was kind of like celebrated in some ways. And Native American tribes called transgendered individuals two-spirit people. And I'm not sure which tribes. It just said Native American, so like Native North American tribes. But it was probably the tribes that ran into the English settlers first. And within the tribes, homosexuals, male and female, and transsexuals would hold respectable roles and be treated with respect. And obviously, once the European settlers came, a lot of that stuff changed when they brought their religion and their rules and all that stuff. Treatment of the LGBT community in modern cultures differs depending on where you are as well. And in places where religion is still or is a large part of the culture, like a place where religion can be seen in the influence of laws and societal norms, the treatment of these individuals tends to be worse. So in countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran, where homosexuals face punishments like imprisonment, lashings, beatings, or even death in some cases, or in Nigeria, where even LGBT defenders see differences in treatment across the United States, states that have more people who identify as religious, like Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, tend to have less LGBT protections and more instances of discrimination. Even in California, the culture changes depending on where you are, and the slight nuances in, say, Southern California and Northern California really do affect the things that you see and hear. And it also depends like how close you are to a big city. So cities that are closer to LA and San Francisco tend to be more liberal and accepting of like different sexualities and genders and all of that, where the more rural you get in California, views tend to change slightly, and you can see more of discriminatory attitudes as shaping the culture a little bit there. So it's really interesting, actually. Where you are really depends on what you think is weird or bad or unacceptable. I have to drink some water. Even kissing differs between cultures. So some cultures see kissing as a greeting. They kiss everyone on the cheek. I think France and French people are really famous for this mwah, mwah, hello, hello, or I guess bonjour, bonjour. And even in Greece, people will kiss on the mouth non-romantically as just a greeting. And so if you saw two people on the street, if you had never been to Greece and you were from some random place, you would think your Greek friend walking around with you kissing everyone on the mouth was some sort of like town kiss bandit or something, because it would just seem really weird to you. But that's normal there. Like everyone just says hello and then kisses on the mouth. So I've never been to Greece, so I'm actually just not really sure how that plays out. It's probably not like you kiss everybody, but the people that your acquaintances and stuff like that. But some cultures see kissing as a very private, intimate act that's rarely done in public. Views on masturbation, sex education, who you should fuck or how much or when or why are all shaped by the culture that we live in. Sex is just a basic human function, and sexual pleasure is a basic human need. We are all animals, after all, and animals do have sex, and there is nothing wrong with doing that, having sex however you choose. Sexuality is usually only a problem when it starts to clash with the culture, but there's a way to combat these negative influences of culture and keep the positive things about culture, because culture isn't bad. It gives us so many amazing things like art, music, fashion, movies, all of these awesome things. But there are some negative influences and pressures to be a certain way. And if we could just realize that culture does play a large part in our own preconceived notions, the things that you find that are true about sex and the rules surrounding sexuality, all of these sexual roles and sexual norms are just a result of the society and the culture that you were raised in. You are free then to create your own ideas about sex. And if you do want to keep these rules and societal norms as your own ideas about sex, then that's fine. And that's good. Whatever is good for you, you get to pick. And you can remove any shame you have about this necessary human act of sex if you don't conform to the societal norms and what culture says you should be as a man or a woman. And it goes beyond your gender, and it goes beyond sex, and it goes beyond gender roles. All of those things are yours to figure out. And even if so, like if you're the only woman in a mostly male career, society may look at you and try to force its ideas on you and shame you for sticking out. But you know that all of that is just human made, and there's nothing wrong or bad or shameful in being yourself or indulging in the culture the way that you want to. The art, the fashion, the food, the music, the fun, and the sex are all things that you get to indulge in the way that you want to, despite the rules about how you should do it. And I know that not everyone actually has the privilege to indulge the way they want to, and not everyone has the privilege to kind of resist these societal norms and the way that culture says things should be. Especially, like I said, in places that do, criminally punish sexuality and different expressions of that. And not everyone lives in California or a big city. Some people do live in the South where you might not be protected if you want to be yourself. But if you do live in California, which is the best state, like, come on. But if you do live in a big city or in California or somewhere where you do have the privilege to kind of create your own rules about who you want to be and indulge in the fashion and the cultural art and beauty and all of that stuff in the way that you want to, be grateful that you can do that, and keep living that way. Live the life that you want, so that we can show the rest of the world that sex doesn't make the world crash and burn, and allowing people to be who they are doesn't make you any less who you are. So I did put in the description that this is going to be a brief discussion, and it is one of my shorter videos. 17 minutes is still pretty long, though. I'm so sorry. I always go too long. But anyway, thank you for watching anyway, and I just wish there was more time to talk about every single thing. And I just wanted to kind of briefly just kind of talk about how culture and sex are sometimes so tied, but they really just don't have to be. But I will post links to resources on where you can read more about sex and culture. And I actually did read some research papers that I really liked and some articles. And there's just so much information. I was like, there's no way I can give all of this information without my main message. So I just decided to give the main message. But yeah, so I'm going to post links to some of the research papers and the articles that I really liked. And just for funsies, I'm going to post a link to a sex toy that I thought was cool. And then from there, you can be on Etsy and already have it typed in or whatever it is, if you wanted to see some cool tentacle sex toys. And I know this was a shorter video, but hopefully I will be doing another bonus episode soon. I really liked doing the sex question video, so I might do that again. And it would be really cool if anyone wanted to send me their own personal sex questions, so I don't have to scour Reddit for some good ones. But yeah, if you have a question you want answered by me, again, just email positivepusslive@gmail.com. I also have a contact page on my website where you don't have to put your email. It'll just send me a message. So you can click on the pussy on my website and I'll give you the contact page, or you can comment, or you can tweet at me, whatever you want. The possibilities are endless, but that is it for tonight. So I will see you pussies next time, and I am me out of here.